As we already know, Harry got a subpoena from the court about that security case just last week. But when I dug a little bit in the past, I realized that his loss prediction was basically inevitable. So let's see what we have said before on this issue. I think that if he goes on with it, he's going to lose. And he should lose. So it is over. But Harry's not going to stop. He claims that they told him, based on intelligence from the government, if he's coming and his risk level is considered high, they will do whatever is necessary to keep him and his security people safe. But his lawyer says, oh no, that's not good enough. Claims it means if they think that his risk level is not high, then it means no real protection from the government. Well, it sounds like the highest court needs to let him know that no means no. The Sugars are claiming that Harry won. He didn't win. Scooby-Doo and people on Twitter, though, are acting like that it's all over and Harry was the big winner. The judge removed things, he says, that had nothing to do with the argument that Harry is trying to make. Being sixth in line to the throne is not a good reason. So essentially, the judge said, no, you cannot argue that being sixth in line to the throne means that you need taxpayer-funded security. So no, Harry sure didn't win. And again, he can't use the reason that some people don't like him as a reason for him to get security. Harry and the lawyer just keep on bringing up these threats that he had back in 2018 and 2019. And the judge was shown that the people who were caught and punished were a couple of young, insane teens under the age of 20. And they're not free. In fact, they're being punished, so Harry doesn't need to worry about those two. And they keep on mentioning his 2 tours in the military back in 2007 and again in 2012. The point is, Intel is not and has not shown any real threats to Harry's life, none at all. Intel claims that his risk levels have been low this whole time. Now, Harry was desperately trying to get his hands on all that information, and he's saying that he doesn't have any way to get the intel they have. It's a couple of countries who are sharing this intel, and he's not going to get that, of course not. But of course, this intel is used to decide who requires more security, and it's not Harry. So the group that Harry is wanting to protect him and Meghan and the Invisible Kids whenever they come to the UK is called SO14. The job of the SO14 is to protect the monarch, that would be Charles, and then the heir and his spouse, and then his heir and his spouse. And then they protect working royals who are working on behalf of the UK and the monarch. But even working royals are not always guaranteed SO14 protection 24/7. Good examples would be Princess Anne and Prince Edward, her own children. Both are titled and royal. Only have protection by SO14 when they're at an event or engagement working on behalf of the monarch. It's not confusing. The government has explained this very clearly, so I don't understand why people are still so confused with why. Now, SO14 sometimes, of course, will help with visiting presidents or kings or queens or princes or heads of state from other countries. For example, COP26. There were so many important people, and they were all gathered in one place. I mean, including the Queen and the royal family too, so they increased security for that event. Now, before we hear the same old tired argument, can a business or a private citizen rent some police? Well, okay, yes, technically that can be done for big events like parades or marathons or something like that. But not SO14, they are off limits. Lawyers who are working on this case keep on saying, no, it is simply not done, you cannot rent them. They are trained for this specific purpose, and we've got to answer to the government and the public, and it has to all be very transparent. So, of course, you cannot rent out the SO14. I mean, just imagine what could happen. If the government did allow Harry and Meghan to rent out SO14, then an actual working member of the royal family could be harmed and they wouldn't be there to protect them. They have to plan weeks ahead, and they explain weeks and months in some cases. It's not like there are just millions of SO14 wandering around looking for something to do. They have to carefully plan who's going to need this protection, where will they be, how long, big events, small events, how many to a car to a location, and always security at the monarch's place wherever the monarch happens to be. And also Prince William's home and his family needs to be protected too. Their job is to protect the monarch and the heirs. It's not to look after the spare and his evil wife and his invisible children. And then there are other guards who are responsible for guarding the grounds in the palaces. Essentially, what Harry is wanting is to be able to call up and say, oh, I'm going to stop by, I'll be here, I'll be there, and I need security for myself and my whole family. I need cars, I need security wherever we want to go. Well, of course you can't get that, Harry. That's simply not done. Just think about it. How in the world is Harry more important than people like Princess Anne and Prince Edward and their spouses? Is Harry more important than Peter, the Queen's first grandchild? Is he more important than Zara or Lady Louise and little James? These are all the Queen's grandchildren. The late Queen also had 12 great-grandchildren, and she deeply loved all of them. So why in the world would Harry be more special than all of them? The lawyers working on behalf of the government also pointed out that if they ever started letting celebrities and famous people argue that they deserve the SO14, it's never going to end. They have said over and over again that Harry's lawyers were informed that he would get security on a case-by-case basis if he needed it, but they say that's not good enough. Harry has not won anything. The judge really limited what could go forward for a judicial review. They haven't set a date yet for the case to be heard. Pretty interesting, even though I'm sure some people are going to claim, oh, well, we don't know where all the sources come from. Well, there are many sources who are all saying the same thing, so I don't think we need to be concerned about that. There's a lot that's been going on right now. I'm sure Justice Swift is just happy that he was able to pass this on to another court and wash his hands of this mess. He did, however, remove some things that he thought that Harry added that didn't belong in the case, and he said they cannot be used. The confusing part is that Harry has filed it a few ways and added some things, which is why some people are very confused and some just don't understand it anyway. So first, Harry tried to argue that he didn't know that his security would be taken away, and his lawyers filed this in court, claiming that he was told in January 2020, but he wanted a meeting to try to change the outcome. So in February, they had another meeting and they told him no again. And then in March, the Met also told him it's over this month, the end of March of 2020. Now that's in court records that he was informed, but he thought that it was wrong. So he argued it again, twice in 2021, and then in September of 2021, Harry filed a lawsuit against the government. Since then, he's been talking about since he is sixth in line to the throne and the direct line, then he should receive security, and he was born a prince of the UK. It is his birthright that he inherited the risk without asking for it. Okay, Harry. And then basically every time Rabeck responds, Harry adds some more. So Harry is trying to say that since he served 2 tours of 10 weeks in 2007 and 19 weeks in 2012, he is a higher risk. His lawyer also claimed that he's the only one who has served in the war, but it was also argued that Andrew did, and he in fact was a war hero, and the Duke of Kent and one of the Kent boys also. So again, they use the argument that intel is used to consider the risk levels. And the fact is, Harry has not been at risk. So on it goes. And then his lawyers claim that Harry wanted to know who was on the board in the Rabeck committee and why they denied this request. So they gave them that information and then filed that Harry had problems with several people on the committee and in the royal senior staff like Sir Edward Young and the lady-in-waiting for the late Queen, Angela Kelly, and Prince Charles, the head of staff, that they were all biased. So it doesn't really matter how many good arguments they give. Harry's just not going to be happy until he gets his way. And the judge admits it's all been Harry's team arguing with the Home Office, just answering. And now they're going to give their proof of risk intel records and proof that no, nobody can rent them. Tragically, Harry really believes that he is so important and so special. Who would even want the two of them visiting them in the UK? Perhaps Charles, but probably not right now. I mean, you know what? Let's remember what they did to the Queen in her last few days on this earth. She should have enjoyed those days. She should have been looking back on her life and feeling good about things. Instead, it was just more BS from Harry and Meghan. And this little issue is not helping the royal family out in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure they're wondering, why can't Harry and Meghan just make a real life for themselves in California and leave all of us alone? It has nothing to do with whether or not the family loves Harry. I'm sure at least Charles still does, but this is not the point. Harry needs to grow up, he needs to act like a real man, and he needs to accept that he can't always get his way.